Hello and welcome back to Scrub League, guys. It's me, the bronze goddess Sonya and Medivh, and I'm joined by the handsome peasant Aden Carville and Hanzo lookalike Kevin Hamilton.
That is outrageous. I cut my hair a long time ago.
Kevin is actually really bad at geometry too, so this doesn't make any sense.
I'll have to think of a new one for the next one, guys.
Even simple geography is... Oh god, now it's not even geometry anymore, it's geography.
Not even
It's
simple
all so hard,
English.
It's so confusing.
It's a simple intro, guys. Come on. Anyway, we're back and doing a new show after a bit of a break while I slowly recovered from a bout with bronchitis. Now that I no longer sound like I'm dying, we can bring you some of what's been happening in the world of the game and the esport. And one of the things we want to talk about is the fact that, for better or worse, you can now talk to your teammates with the addition of voice chat. We have some thoughts on the latest patch, as well as the new character Maiev, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Heroes of the Dorm. If you don't know what that is, that's kind of the problem. From placement matches to patch notes, stay with us and find out what's new and hot in the Nexus. So Kevin, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about the voice chat that they brought in?
Yeah, so I mean, I was really optimistic from the beginning about voice chat. A lot of people were not. A lot of people expected that it was going to be really toxic. There were a lot of trolls. People who have non-North American accents might be discriminated against, women being discriminated against. And while there have been some stories about that appearing online, so far the reception of voice chat has been extremely positive, and I can echo that because every single game I've had since voice chat came in has been great. To me it feels like an entirely new game, just based on like the level of coordination you can now achieve. Like if you didn't have crazy APM and were able to, mash in, 4 top, or like Falstad, fly to bot merc camp or something. Like now you can just do that while you're accomplishing other tasks. And I think it really changes the game in a very significant way.
Yeah, I surprisingly am gonna agree with you, and I'm coming from this as like a super jaded person who thought that as soon as they heard my voice, that I was just gonna get a whole bunch of shit from people, and that it was just gonna be people yelling really ignorant things, or just not being helpful at all. I basically thought this was gonna make the community a little bit more toxic because now they didn't have to type to be toxic. They could just say something to you. But pleasantly surprised. And I totally agree with you, Kevin. I think it makes gameplay way easier. I'm almost thinking, like, why didn't they bring this in, 2 years ago? Because it does make the game that much more fun. I don't know what Aiden's experience has been, but yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised.
I haven't got to try HOTS with the voice chat yet, but it is nice to hear that it's
Why
not
are you
a wasteland.
Why are you even on this recording then? Can we get like a real expert brought in for this segment?
All right, bye.
Okay, so Sam, yeah, I think that you have like a really commanding voice, so it doesn't surprise me that people would fall in line and not dare be toxic to you.
Well, and actually, I was playing today and actually made a friend on voice chat, which I never make friends on the internet. And but the guys that were, or girls too, they could be girls, let's put that out there, but the ones that were being toxic or trolly were still typing. They didn't bother to come into voice chat. They would still type all of their bullshit. So it almost seems like the people who are, going into a game wanting to be nasty, they kind of just don't bother going into voice chat at all.
Well,
And
yeah,
the ones who actually care are the ones who are going in.
I think that
It's because they don't want you to hear the squeak of their voice.
there is that too. Yeah, I think that really clearly shows the divide between like text-based communication and speech. Like, I think that when you are hearing other people's voices, like you're much more cognizant of them as human beings, and you actually like receive the tone of their voice in the appropriate way. Because with like the very clipped kind of curt succinct typing that you have to do when you're playing a game of HOTS. Like, you can sound like you're being sarcastic or you're being, short with people, while I think voice chat really just makes it clear that, we're all just trying our best, and our failures aren't because of us just screwing around. And I think it is way easier for a person to type a hateful message or something spiteful or sarcastic than it is to actually say it. I think it takes much more courage to do that. So I think that the barrier to entry to being a troll is much higher in voice chat than it is in text.
Yeah, and I went into this thinking this is gonna be when I used to play Halo on Xbox Live, and they'd hear my voice and go, "Oh my God, it's a girl! What are you doing here?" And I haven't yet had even the slightest reaction to me being female, and it was both refreshing and surprising. And I have to give the HOTS community credit for this one because I thought the worst of them, and they proved me wrong so far. So
now, is that
this is honestly blowing my mind as someone who spent, God, I don't even know how many years playing Modern Warfare 2 on Xbox Live with his friends. That is most of my voice chat experience. So to know that it's not that is really nice, I have to admit.
Now, do you think that's just because, hey, hashtag it's 2018 and things have advanced, or do you think something's actually different about the Heroes of the Storm community that is less toxic than maybe these other games?
I'm still not quite willing to give it to the community, if I'm honest. We've played with enough people that I'm just not willing to do that.
All of the community listening right now, Aden has no respect for you whatsoever.
And it might be an age thing too, because I did find while Heroes of the Storm might have some younger players, I honestly don't run into a lot of people who, at least when we go as far as identifying some kind of demographic, I don't normally find someone who's under 18, and maybe age has something to do with it. Age, maturity, although those aren't normally things you find again on online games, but again, maybe I just haven't found that one troll who just wants to yell things at me. But I actually like the fact that people don't care what my gender is. And that's the best part about this is I went in thinking, okay, they're going to hear a female voice, even though I do kind of have a lower voice for a female. And it doesn't phase them at all. There's no reaction whatsoever to it. So that's actually the best thing about this.
Oh, I think there's a reaction. I think they fall in line because they hear that, there's someone who's passionate and on top of the situation speaking on the other end. Somebody, a commanding presence who's ready to take over the game.
Oh yeah, that's totally 100% an accurate description of me, for
Did
sure.
you lose a bet to Sam? What's happening?
Yeah, I know. Why are people being nice to me? This is just weird.
But I do have a theory about the age range that you normally see on Heroes of the Storm, and I would be willing to guess that it is generally a slightly older community than, let's say, League of Legends, mostly because it's kind of like it's the Super Smash Brothers of MOBAs. But Blizzard is a weird company in that, like, they released Diablo 3, sure, but like you didn't care about Diablo 3 unless you played Diablo 2. And if you cared about Diablo 2, you are not young enough to be, the squeaky kid being a jerk on voice comms. Same with, StarCraft. StarCraft 2 could sure, bring over some people, but again, it's the hype behind it was majority people who grew up on StarCraft. And then you have World of Warcraft, which requires a subscription. Let's face it, these children don't have subscription fees.
There is also the time factor too. I mean, we usually play really, really late because of our work schedules, and maybe it's just past the bedtime of all the little jerks. It's just way past their bedtime, so that they're not the ones on at that time. So maybe I should try playing in the daytime and see if that makes a difference.
Don't do it.
Then I'd have to get up in the daytime, and that's just not any fun.
Take it from me, being a day walker is the worst.
Well, I'm glad that we've sorted that whole thing out. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different factors, like, the shorter game times might appeal to people who, have kids and can't commit to like sitting down and playing for an hour, for a different type of MOBA. But yeah, I think probably Aiden's point about, um, people who love Blizzard properties being a bit older at this point, uh, being a significant draw. Because like, I don't know, like Hearthstone is their latest, huge smash, and it's not like there's a ton of Hearthstone. Well, actually, there is, I guess. There's all these Hearthstone characters in the game. I just don't think of them as being Hearthstone specific.
I mean, yeah, there's technically Hearthstone characters, but they're Warcraft characters.
Yeah.
I think maybe once we have a bunch more Overwatch characters, we might start to see more of a shift towards somewhat of a younger crowd, because Overwatch is obviously pleasing to every audience. So
yeah,
maybe.
Very fine point about that too.
But Aiden, yeah, you play Overwatch. What do you generally find with the difference? Like, what do you find are any issues or even good points about the voice chat in Overwatch?
I have never played a game of Overwatch where I wanted to keep voice chat on. Full stop. That's my experience with Overwatch. So that's kind of also tainting my view of Heroes of the Storm mic chat as well.
So your bar is just really low. So if we play with voice chat, you're just going to be super happy if no one's yelling at you.
Yeah, like literally nothing could happen and I would be ecstatic.
Amazing. All right, so Sam, you wanted to tell us a few things about Heroes of the Dorm coming back.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. To further age myself, Heroes of the Dorm is currently happening right now, and it's college and university teams from across North America, and it's like an NCAA style March Madness tournament. Right now, they're in the prelims of that tournament. I believe they're going into week 4, but it is kind of a March Madness top. I believe what's the number, 64 teams. And last year, in their inaugural year, I saw a lot more hype to do with Heroes of the Dorm, especially to do with the Final Four. They made videos about the teams. They did a lot more coverage, a lot more hype about it. And I was actually sucked into that and watched the documentary that they did about Heroes of the Dorm. And it featured one of the players that is now one of my favorites, Michael Udall. And it was able to give him and some other players a boost in terms of visibility, which is something we always talk about on the show. And I'm not finding that this time. I feel like because it's the sophomore year, it's just falling by the wayside. And I hate to place more blame on Blizzard, I really do. But it feels like an afterthought, and it really shouldn't be, because it has a lot of potential for something to be an NCAA style tournament, like a March Madness style tournament. We all know how big that basketball tournament is in North America, and I think they were really trying to mirror that with this, but they're not giving it the same level of love as something like that demands.
I mean, obviously they're not giving it the same level of love as, the NCAA.
But I feel like they're not even trying. They're not trying to give it much. Like, you guys are, making fun and saying, "Well, what's that?" But honestly,
hey, I'm not making fun. I love Heroes of the Dorm.
I do too. And
it's like it's just advanced enough that like it feels like pro play, but people are still willing to like take risks and do weird things and have big personalities.
And there's
like on the for real, like, I was joking about what's Heroes of the Dorm. Obviously, I know, of course, I know what Heroes of the Dorm is. It's neat. It's a cool little thing. But you said it's on right now, and my literal reaction was, "Wait, for real?"
Yeah, exactly. And another thing is too, it has a great Canadian presence. We always talk about Canadian presence in Heroes of the Storm. So many of the big universities, not my alma mater, no, but Kevin's. I mean, Ryerson's got a team. Carleton's got a team. UOIT's got a team. All the big name, University of Toronto's got a team. UBC obviously has a huge presence. And like, I feel like there's so much that could be taken away from this tournament, because again, this is your feeder league. this is where your next stars are going to come from. So if you care about the future of your esport, you'd want to foster that kind of community starting from when they're playing in college, just like you would in any other sport. And I don't know, I'm feeling really let down by the amount of care I perceive that Blizzard is taking with this tournament. These players, the prize for this tournament is a full ride in terms of tuition for the 5 players. And that's huge. I mean, if you think about how much it costs to go to, if you think about how much it costs, especially in the States, to go to college, that's ridiculous. And you're getting essentially what amounts to a 4-year scholarship for winning this. So, I mean, I wanted to see more, and maybe I will as the tournament goes on. Maybe it's the fact that it's prelims and it's not the big bracket tournament yet, but I'm just really hoping that they ramp it up during the main tournament, because it's a lot of fun to watch, because I feel like people can be a lot more invested. Because Heroes of the Storm right now, you're not attached to a certain city or state or province, but you can identify with your school. And I love Heroes of the Dorm, and I really wish that the actual tournament fit my expectations of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that this is kind of postured as the feeder system for the HGC and Pro Play, but I also just wonder how long down the road Blizzard is looking in terms of their professional development. I mean, we all know Heroes of the Storm is not making cash hand over fist. So I don't know whether they're thinking okay, we got to make sure we have this apparatus in place to ensure that there's a high level of play going on, 2 or 3 years down the line, right?
Yeah, but I guess with that, I would have liked to see maybe team profiles would have been a great thing. I think if you did a short video for each school and kind of gave something for these guys to cheer for.
Isn't it 64 schools?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about a documentary for each of them. I'm just thinking show their faces and tell what's their team name and what's their school and stuff like that. Where are they from? And I think that's what people really care about when they're cheering for these teams. And I just would have liked to see something like that gave, again, I'm going to say it again, visibility to these players.
Yeah, even something that you required the teams to do themselves. Be if you want to be in Heroes of the Dorm, you got to cut a 30-second or 1 minute intro tape that we can play on the broadcast before you guys go on.
Exactly. Put it on the teams if you want and make that part of their requirements. I think that would be really, really cool, because right now it depends on, the casual watcher themselves going and trying to find these teams on their school sites. And sometimes some of them aren't set up. They don't have an online presence, or they don't have a huge presence otherwise. And this is the lack of investment that I'm talking about. And I honestly love this tournament. I actually like it sometimes more than the HGC. I actually look forward to it a little bit more. And picking your bracket is actually really fun. I'm quite bad at it, but I love doing that.
I mean, I understand the desire not to leech resources away from the HGC, which, as we've discussed already, is kind of underfunded and doesn't quite get the level of infrastructure it requires. But yeah, I think some of that sort of really low investment kind of decisions, even putting things on, they're college kids, they're busy obviously, but they're passionate about this and they want to, many of them want to make a name for themselves. You can try and put that on there and try and make these players who often have more personality than HGC players, be able to show that on the world stage.
And you also want to make the schools invest in it too. A lot of schools do have dedicated esports teams now, but if you want Heroes of the Storm to be a part of that, where, a lot of schools might have a bigger dedicated League of Legends following or something like that, you need to appeal the same way that the HGC needs to appeal to advertisers. You need to appeal to these schools and make them want to give the support to their players to send them to these tournaments, because it is hard to get away from school for that long to go and do these tournaments. So yeah, Aden, what do you think? Would you watch would you have like a favorite team or want to watch some more Heroes of the Dorm?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys know me. I'm never that into the high level esports. Like it's something I find very interesting and really unique to the video game sphere that I can actually find some amount of interest in, what is basically, the NFL of video games, let's say. But this HGC is, or not HGC, sorry, the Heroes of the Dorm is just, it's neat. It's a cool little, like almost the hometown lads version of pro play, and I would love to be able to know that it's going on without being told actively by someone else. It would be nice to see it get some love.
Definitely. Well, as we stated before, we have been a little remiss in our news shows because of my lack of health and being ability to breathe. We do want to definitely go through some of the updates and patch notes and Aden's new bae, Maiev. We definitely want to talk about and how powerful she is. So why don't we actually start with that? Aden, why don't you tell us about your new girlfriend here?
Oh my god, I love Maiev so much. I am very sad to see her getting nerfed while simultaneously fully admitting that it's so necessary. Oh my god, you guys, it was the most necessary thing ever.
Yeah, they nerfed her, what, 2 days after she came out? And then
Yeah,
again
and
a
now
week
she's
after
getting
that?
nerfed again. Yeah, so it's been a rough ride for her, but she launched just at insane power levels. Walking around with what, like 45% armor or something, like really easily, just all the time. And it was a little bit off-putting for other players.
Yeah, I mean
Well,
they've
for
stripped
those of
off
us,
all of her base armor now, right?
Yeah, it used to be 15, then it was 10, and now it's 0 because that's nuts.
well, for any of the other players here or Heroes of the Storm fans who might, like me, have been living under a rock for a while, can you guys kind of describe what she's like as a character, her play style, and basically all I know about her from what I've played is never run away from Maiev. So why don't you guys kind of describe her as a character?
Well, she first just bull rushed onto the scene as this weirdly tanky brawler who you were never allowed to go away from ever. Kind of like, it's really interesting how they built her because she's the one who like imprisoned Illidan, or there she has beef with Illidan. So they play similarly in that you can't get away from them, but she does it in the opposite fashion. Whereas Illidan, you just can't escape from because he'll chase you across the world. You literally can't move away from Maiev. She will not allow you to, and it's really interesting dichotomy there.
Although
But
she
she
can she
will.
can she can chase pretty well too.
I mean, yeah, her E is one of the best escape slash chase slash initiators in the game right now. She
And
just launches a shadow forward that she can teleport to.
and it does a healthy chunk of
But
damage too.
yeah, it does a weirdly high amount of damage that I always forget about because I'm just initiating with it usually. But yeah, she launches it forward. It'll stop for a second at its max range. It'll come back, and at any point you can just reactivate to blink to it. Other than that, she has built in just a dodge, which is so fun to use. It feels so good to finally have a really good answer to, for instance, Kael'thas just choosing to do 90% of your health with one press of R. If you time it correctly, you just backflip over a fireball, and it feels so cool. With her W, she slaps everyone in the face that's nearby, and then if you move away, you get hit again, and then also stunned. So, as Sam said, don't run away. It's actually bad for you. One of her most fun abilities, aside from her entire kit, is definitely her Q, because you have the ability to just constantly use it forever. It just does this weirdly. I think we can all agree it's a weird template for like its AOE effect. It's definitely kind of unique in that regard. I don't know if you guys have looked at how she fires her Q.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Sam, I don't know if you've got to see it yet, but it's
I've
just a
seen you
weird.
play her, and I've tried her in try mode, but I've been too scared to take her into a match.
No, I can see that, but she just has this weird Q, or her Q is a weird like crescent shaped fan of knives that has this tiny little delay that almost feels weird to use. But if she hits multiple people, it basically just gets a reset, and she can just keep slapping groups of people with it, just ad nauseum if she feels like it. And just all combined, she has this insane kit of just being able to get in and then stop you from leaving until she's done murdering you, and then kind of just leave.
Yeah.
And it at launch, you could not stop her.
And what about her ults? Because when I'm looking at a new character and whether or not I want to play them, I really care about if both of the ults are viable depending on the situation. Would you say that about hers, or does she have one instant favorite?
I have not really bothered using her containment disc, which sort of like a single target
Cocoon.
stasis wave thing from Medivh, or yeah, a cocoon that you can't destroy from a Nubarak. I haven't bothered using it, if I'm honest, because her other ability is just yet more not being able to run away from her. It's I don't know, it's really weird, and I kind of don't like it, but it's still really fun and effective for her kit. But after, I don't know, a short delay, whatever delay is, a second or so, it just creates a ring of like dudes that stop enemies from leaving the circle. They like shove you back to the center if you try to leave. Once you've activated one, you can then leave through that space, that little gap that it's left, because they disappear after shoving you. But it's such a weird alt, but again, it's really just, it facilitates her keeping you in one spot and murdering your face.
Yeah, so for me, like, obviously she came out, she was busted in half. She had like a 65% win rate or something completely insane. The thing that jumped out at me was that normally, like, when a hero is overtuned, it's like either their kit is ridiculous or their numbers are way too high. Her situation was both. She had both a kit that's ridiculous because her Q, auto resets. She's got that teleport. She can be invincible for like 3/4 of a second, like every, what was it, every 6 seconds or every 8 seconds at launch?
8 seconds, I believe, is the cooldown. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just, even if you just don't even think about it and you just push that on cooldown, like, that's really significant damage mitigation.
Yeah, you're dodging even just an auto attack is really significant against certain characters.
Yeah, and then the base armor, of course, and then the talented one, the memento, which is just makes her auto attacks bounce all over the place. Like, you saw the most absurd videos going up online of people 1v4ing with Maiev. Her just locking a bunch of people in place and just spamming Q over and over again. And then if they dare try to fight back, you just D. And then, if you get caught out of position, you just E out and then D. It reminded me of like a really busted version of the character that people wanted her to kill, which is, Genji. I think we can all agree. People were very excited about her being the anti-mobility hero. But Aden, maybe you can comment on this. It doesn't feel like she is really even doing that effectively. To me, it feels like she preys on heroes with low mobility, even more.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
she feels like one of those high mobility heroes.
100%. It's kind of like another kind of force multiplier, except in this case it would be a force divider against your enemy. Like I'm sure she could do a fine job of limiting mobility of someone who has high mobility, but those people are where she doesn't want to be. Like they're harassing your backlines and doing bad stuff to them, but that's exactly where she wants to be in the enemy team. And sure, you could stop Genji from moving away twice, but like he has infinite ability to get away. Whereas instead, you could take someone like, I don't know, Rainer, who has no possible escape whatsoever, and just say, yeah, you have less escape than you currently have. You literally have negative escape.
Negative escape. I have a question for both of you about her, and it pertains to both of your strengths. Kevin, because I know it's your favorite thing in the game, how is she as a laner? How is she as an XP getter?
I mean, honestly, I don't think that's her best execution. Like,
No.
she can be in the solo lane, but really you want self-sustain, which she doesn't have. Like, she could bully someone out of a lane, but, you know, if you place her against someone like Blaze, who could just play very safe and heal himself up, she's eventually going to have to tap, she's eventually going to have to back. She is very safe against being ganked, so I mean, that's an advantage in the solo lane, definitely.
Yeah,
And
you would hate her for solo laning. It's not great. I've actually played that exact matchup, her against Blaze in a solo lane. I don't remember why I was there, but he destroys her in the solo lane. It just, you can't do it.
Blaze has like really snuck up to be like bannable in HGC. Like Blaze is like nerfs are quite possibly incoming for Blaze. He's very strong right now.
yeah, well, you know who I keep seeing get banned? Maiev. Like every game, I think, or at least every other game, we see her get banned at least once. So, I mean,
Well,
sorry, dying.
Oh, yep, there it is. I'll try and finish that thought for you, but yeah, I mean, like pro play happens a couple patches usually uh before the one that everyone's playing on live servers. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case here, but you know, if they're playing with any of the pre-nerf builds of Maiev, like obviously first ban, don't even question it.
Yeah, if they're playing with launch Maiev, it is essentially like just one team only gets one real ban.
And Aden, what would you say, you know, from easy, medium, or hard, what would you say her skill cap is at? Like, what's the type of player that's going for this character right now? But not only that, but able to execute her well. Where would you rate her?
I would rate her lower than Kel'Thuzad, but higher than, I was gonna say higher than Raynor, but like that's
Come on,
That's
man.
basically
literally
all of the heroes.
that's the entire
between all of the
heroes
heroes.
roster. So yeah, it's between every single hero in the game. No, it's lower than Kel'Thuzad. It's not that bad. Really, you have to get in the mindset of like really quickly being able to determine where you can drop your Q that not only will it hit your target, but in best case scenario, it will hit your target and someone else. So it might involve moving to a weird angle so you can make use of the weird crescent that she fires it in. But you have to really quickly be able to determine, can I hit multiple people with this? Sometimes it's really easy because they're just clustered together because that's what she does. So you can fire 30 Qs into their face. But sometimes you kind of have to position so that like one dude's over here, one dude's over here, and you kind of hit them with the two tips of the crescent. And other than that, that's really as hard as it gets. Like, if I'm honest, I've been playing her a lot, and for the most part, it's initiate with your E and then punch everyone in the face. You're done.
Well, she's not the only one about to get some nerfs, and she's not the only change that's coming. We watched a really interesting Q&A with the developers, and I think there's some really cool changes happening that are coming. Some are more exciting than others. Some of those include some changes to Lunara that are apparently coming. We've got changes to Sonya and Medivh that are coming, and also everybody's favorite map. They keep talking about bringing back in new and different ways. Hanamura is still being reworked. Yeah, that's basically everyone's reaction. Actually, on Reddit, I believe I saw it was, "Oh God, please no, don't." And some of the changes are including, things like actually hitting the core, being able to hit different tower, not only the towers, but actually being able to hit the core, and then having a single neutral payload. And we'll get to Hanamura and the problem that it presents. But Kevin, why don't you talk to us a little bit more about some of the patch notes and some of the character updates that are coming?
Yeah, sure. I will say I find that change about Hanamura kind of weird. Like, I mean, Towers of Doom is you can't hit the core, so I didn't find it that strange that Hanamura was another map in that vein. But I'm definitely way into the single neutral payload. I think it always should have been that way. Otherwise, it was just people scrambling around all over the place.
See, here's the problem I have, though, because if you have a single neutral payload, what's the function? And you can hit the core with your team. What then is the function of the payload?
Well, they just
like
have
if you're no longer using the payloads, if there's not multiple payloads anymore for each team to hit the core with, why do we care? Like, why do we care about a payload now? What isn't it kind of redundant at this point?
Well, I assume the neutral payload will maybe hit like forts or keeps so that you can help push the core. Because if it just does core damage, then that kind of sort of negates a lot of the damage, like a lot of the point of going after forts and keeps normally. So that would be my expectation.
I'm basically assuming it's going to be Blackheart's Bay, but with one thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be it. As for the other changes, so Medivh and Sonya, just a special note for Sonya, they did re-nerf her. They attempted to nerf her before, but somehow that didn't actually make it into the patch, so they had to re-nerf her. So that's finally gone through. People, I think, are open to the Medivh rework.
Yes.
Just because, Medivh is going to be interesting because they're going to put healing baseline on Force of Will. So he's going to be more of like a true support or healer in that sense, I guess. But these changes were seemingly based on the fact that like Medivh and Sonya have next to no build diversity. Like when I'm playing Sonya, like I'm mostly on autopilot. I'll change a couple talents here or there. Like both heroics are valid. They keep nerfing Poison Spear, so maybe other options can open up. But a lot of people are very concerned about the Sonya rework because people love Sonya where she is, right? She's not a hero like Raynor, where people say like it's just not fun to play, like he's not functional. I think this is entirely about build diversity, which seems to be like a really big priority for Blizzard for some reason.
Yeah, I'm of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mindset. Like I feel like there's so many other heroes that could really use Gul'dan with his ults. If they want build diversity, they should probably give him a viable second ult. But I think she's just a strong, consistent pick for a team that needs a bruiser. So I'm of the kind of thinking that why are they bothering with her when there are other heroes that definitely need more fine tuning than she does?
Yeah, she finally fell below a 50% win rate with this most recent patch. She's at like 49.5%, which is still fine. It's still like pretty much right on the money where you want to be, but
one change I am looking forward to, and I've said this about Lunara before because I do love Lunara, she has a talent tier that's completely dedicated to the Wisp, and it just doesn't need to be there. Like, you do not need 4 talents dedicated to this Wisp in one talent tier. I actually appreciate that change that's coming. I think it might make her build diversity a little bit better. And I'm open to any changes they want to make on Lunara. I think the changes they announced are definitely going to make her better, which is cool because she's already such, that annoying character that no one wants to play against.
Yeah, speaking about that, apparently something that the devs are trying to address with Medivh is that they say he's frustrating to play against, and you're looking at kind of the counterplay options. I never felt that way against Medivh. Maybe it's just because I don't run into enough amazing Medivhs. Like, I get how that can happen, but to me, Medivh, like, picking Medivh takes so much away from your team that I feel like all that crazy utility he brings, like, I'm not mad when that happens because I know that there's so many other things that Medivh can't do and isn't doing for his team.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can't really relate to that.
It's pretty common train of thought that I've been seeing all over the Reddit thread about the Q&A. But I think, like, commonly what comes up is the problem with that is exactly like you said. At our level, we don't run into a ton of good Medivhs. Even a pretty good Medivh can swing things really, really hard because he has an invincibility on a basically 0-second cooldown, and that's absurd. But his ability to, like, have perfect chase or perfect escapes and perfect invincibility and literally impervious to counterattack scouting ability is absurdly strong in a player who can recognize that and actually utilize it. But, like, we play at our level and not master tier, so unfortunately we get stuck with the baddies.
Yeah, I am so out of my league when it comes to Medivh because down here in bronze, if they are playing Medivh, you're not happy about it because first of all, you never see him. I think my rank is really intimidated by him, and I can say that because I am super intimidated by him. I don't think I've ever played Medivh ever. He's just never appealed to me. And in my rank, like if you do see a Medivh, you're wanting to quit because it's just not going to happen for you.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to me that they're making Master's Touch a baseline quest for him. That's the one where he has to, I think, hit like 30 heroes with his Q.
Yeah.
Before
he has to hit 30
dying.
heroes without dying. Yeah.
Yeah, which if you put in that baseline, just make it feel like he's going to be even more intimidating to players who would want to pick him up because, you might not even complete your baseline quest the whole game.
I don't know. I'm of the opinion that, at least for me, that is my favorite kind of change to a hero, where if it's something that literally everyone takes anyway, it's basically already part of his kit because no one is taking anything else. So make it part of his kit so that we can have more interesting options.
No, I mean,
you don't want to just autopilot your way through a build every time.
I agree with that sentiment, but it's also suggesting to players that not only do they have to land 30 skill shots, in a game, they also have to never die. Like, it's setting up an expectation that, like, you gotta be real good before you can play this guy. And that's something that kept me away from Alarak for a long time, was everyone was suggesting, a poor Alarak is like a liability on your team, which I mean, it's true, but I was under the impression he was way harder to play than he ended up being.
Yeah, well, speaking of rank, Aden, you've got a particular bone to pick with how one gets to their rank. So why don't you tell us about that?
Well, there actually was a change or two I wanted to quickly address with the patch notes. That's all right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things, like, I mean, they nerfed Malthael, which is great. They increased Thrall's Q range, which is great. They're tweaking Zeratul a bunch. They did a weird support-focused buff to Tyrant. But you guys know that I love me some Zool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But Zool did not show up on my top 10 favorite heroes list. Go watch that video if you haven't already.
Wait, he didn't?
No, he
assumed he did.
He did not. I mentioned that in the video, that he was not up there because he is in a really weird, clunky place. Like, his design is not elegant, even though I love kind of the necromancer fantasy of him. And they made some more changes to him that I can't I can't handle, like, Zool is already really weird in that in Diablo 2 the Necromancer was not a, you know, in your face melee bruiser with, a really deep V, like getting up in your face. And that's kind of more what he is in Heroes of the Storm. And the changes that they made is they felt like he was too strong pushing and being that like double lane soaker, which is kind of like his identity right now. So they weakened his skeletons even more to the point that they're pretty laughable. And they weakened his level 7 talent that gives him sustain with his skeletons. And then they like buffed his health and auto attack damage and reduced the cooldown on his bone prison. And I mean, the bone prison thing is like a really legitimate buff. Like, that's really quite sizable. But it's just it's encouraging me to do things that I don't want to do, and I still feel like I can't do when I'm playing Zool, which is to like mix it up in the team fight and run in and, try and get some hits in. To me, like, I think that to make Zool more competent in team fights requires much more than this sort of just addressing these numbers. And I think that it's unfortunate that Zool was kind of reworked not that long ago, because I think Zool is definitely one of those characters that's really in need of a rethink in terms of what his identity is and how his kit functions.
I mean, I've talked before about my idea for how you can make someone like Malfurion much more interesting, and it's always very ambitious. But if we don't hold the games that we love to high standards, then why even bother? And I think you could do something similar with Zool. Basically, any character that has been a part of an RPG where you have branching skill trees they have so much potential to be really interesting. Not necessarily multi-class heroes, but heroes with very, very different builds. And we almost touched on that with Stukov, where you can choose, do you want to have melee or do you want to have range? And expanding upon that for someone like Zool would be really great. Like, do you want to focus more on yourself and maybe be like up in people's faces? Do you want to focus on magic nukes like his bone spear? Or do you want to focus on raising an army of skeletons? That would be so interesting and cool. And we're not getting anything even remotely like that. It makes me so sad.
Yeah, and I understand why they don't do that from like a balance perspective, like trying to make all these wildly different paths that you can go down. It's just like Zool can summon like 4 piddly skeletons, and it just doesn't feel right. He's got that Probius issue, where although to me Probius feels like he has an identity, and like what you're doing with him. But here
it's just a garbage one. But yeah,
here they're just like, Zool, get out of the lane, start mixing it up in team fights. What do you do in those team fights? I don't know. You could try and use your W to slow their auto attacks, but you'll just get melted instantly.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm an assassin trying to pick out in a team fight, like, who do I attack, who do I kill first, I'm going, okay, if Zool's here, if he's not in lane doing his job, that's exactly who I'm going for.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of Valera, where her role is kind of in transition, and I think a lot of people who pick Valera or Zool don't know what they're supposed to be now, because a lot of people said, oh yeah, Valera's like she can gank people in the back line, while a lot of people are like, no, she's an anti-dive hero now. And yeah, Zool's in that weird place. Anyway, so Aden, you were going to tell us about placement matches. Sorry, I got in a bit of a Zool rant. I apologize.
I mean, I guess we can allow you one Zool rant per episode. But this issue is actually not something I was even aware of, actively anyway, until really recently. But now it you guys know, and I don't think any of our viewers would know this, but I am not one to try and get ranked on my own. I don't play Hero League on my own. I play this game with friends. I play this game with you guys. And mostly it's because I just don't want to deal with placement matches on my own. And it turns out maybe I knew the reason why all along. And that's because your 10 placement matches are just bogus for how swingy it is for placing your MMR and your ranking when you're done. Not only just your 10, but from what I've read, it's pretty common knowledge that your first 3 games are just hugely weighted for how they affect your placement. And at the end of the day, if you don't play, I think the number was something like over 200 games during the season, then those first 3 games that you play in placement literally matter more than the rest of the season for you. And that's bananas. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm gonna have to agree with you here, except I'm the opposite in terms of I'm a complete and utter masochist when it comes to Hero League, because every season I'm like, okay, I have a chance to get the hell out of bronze. And I go into my placement matches this, bright and chipper, hopeful person. And it just, especially when you are in bronze and trying to get out, and I think this problem is particularly bad for my rank. If your first 3 matches swing, and they do, I agree with you, and you get trolls or disconnects or things that are very common in the rank that I am, or the MMR that I am, you're screwed. There's no way to get yourself out of that hole. And it is a hole. And I completely and utterly agree. There's got to be, and I thought this would change with, the changes to, what's it called? Sorry, I'm having a complete brain fart here. The way they changed to the way they measure your rank and your MMR and
performance-based.
Yeah, they introduced performance-based matchmaking. Yeah.
Thank you, performance-based matchmaking. That's the words I was looking for. Words, Sam. And when they brought that in, I thought, okay, this is going to change how bad this is, how swingy this is, and it didn't. When I did my placement matches twice.
They had to disable it because it was ruining the whole system. It was just wildly malfunctioning.
I was actually super excited. I pan clapped when I found out that I was redoing my placement matches, because my first 10 went so badly. I think I had 2 disconnects. I had at least 2 that had at least 1 complete walk up to towers the whole game troll. And it's just super frustrating. And I agree. I don't play Hero League that much anymore. I play with you guys and I play with other people, and it's soul crushing. It can be completely soul crushing.
I read a story, actually multiple stories that are basically the same common thread of I spent the entire season crawling out of the hole that my placement matches put me in. And I can't imagine how just crushing it would be to spend an entire season of 300 matches making no progress because the 10 placement matches are just so ridiculously stacked.
Yeah, that's one thing that I find very strange is how slow it is to say what you will about the 10 placement matches, putting you in the wildly wrong position. But once you're in that position, it takes forever for you to go up a rank or down a rank. It's you have to win a bunch of games in a row, and then you have your promotion match. You gotta win that. It's like doubles in tennis, where it's you gotta win 2 games in a row to
tennis. What are you, a nerd?
Yeah, I know. To actually move on and succeed. It's just it takes ages. I've just been trying to go from I think I landed in gold 2 this season. I've just been trying to get up to plat 5 before the season ends, and it's taking forever. It's weird, and I think that you could really solve a lot of the problems. People wouldn't be as miserable being dunked down into bronze or silver or something that they don't think they deserve. If it wasn't that miserable to that slow to crawl your way back out. Now the problem with all this is that if we solve the problem and Sam gets out of bronze, then we have to stop calling her the bronze goddess, have to start calling her the silver siren or something.
But is Sam getting out of bronze indicative of a solution or a problem?
What do you mean, Aden?
All I know is we'd have to cancel Get Good Sam, and it would really cause a lot of problems for us.
Well, let's be real. As much as getting out of bronze would be amazing, silver is still a struggle. And even in silver rank, I still think maybe we could do Get Good Sam advanced, where I'm not, I am just...
We could just call it Get Good Sam. What are we doing?
Oh my god! Yes! Yes! New branding! Why did we not think of this before? Get Gold Sam.
Garbanzo Sam.
It's just such a missed opportunity.
Sam, it gets better.
Yeah, that would be more hopeful. That would be less soul crushing for me.
All right, well, guys,
because we all know about my escapades in bronze and how I need to get the hell out.
Well, look forward to that new series in a year's time when Sam finally makes it out of bronze and into silver.
A year? That's generous, actually. That was better than I was giving myself.
I have faith in you.
Thanks.
I don't.
I know you don't. And it's funny because Aiden's my coach, so this is how well my lessons are going, obviously. But if you haven't checked it out yet, we did put up a Tyrande Get Good Sam, where the match actually went pretty well. So check that out if you haven't already.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed my time. I mean, I always enjoy. Who doesn't enjoy Tyrande, right? She's great.
Well, that's it for our new show this week, guys. You can catch up with all of our episodes on YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even Reddit. Or if you want to email us all of your complaints or questions or concerns, you can email us at scrubleaguepodcast@gmail.com. But until next time, for Aden and Kevin, we will see you in the Nexus.
Simple geography.
That was intentional. It was intentional, I tell you.
Kevin, Meme Lord 2018.
Sine of x equals cosine of pi over 2 minus x. Simple trigonometry.